Usually I let it rest for a second here. All right, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to Town Hall number 14 for Reskill Americans. And I did want to welcome everyone. I know it's been kind of a little bit of a stressful period in transitioning from the coursework into projects, and some people have been really scrambling and working hard to finish their coursework. I really appreciate all the hard work. So, Juan, do you want to talk about what just kind of give everyone an overview of what they should have heard from us last week, and if they're added to a project team, and what to expect this week?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Excited to be here today, just like every other Monday. So last week was basically splitting up the project teams. And if you have completed phase 1, you should have gotten into one of the project teams working on the many projects, from like the wildfire project to the health hub. And I know like some of the meetings were going on, and people, and like the different tasks in the projects were being split up, and basically some of the preliminary work. I also know that we kind of like gave a little extension to just allow some of the people who had some challenges in finishing their projects to be able to get in the last group that we have. So this week, the same work is going to be going on. If you have any challenges with your team, feel free to reach out to the project managers and the technical mentors to help you remove any blockers that you may have. Please feel free to communicate with your teammates. It's really important that we get that collaboration going, because that's going to be very crucial to the success of the project teams. And if by any chance you are having any issues, because I know like some last minute finishes, like I mentioned earlier, was supposed to be added to teams. If that hasn't happened for you, please reach out to me and I'll get it taken care of. I wish everyone best of luck with the projects.
Thank you.
We're super excited to see what you build.
And from here going forward, like a lot of their, instead of the LMS, I mean, you'll be getting messages on the LMS, I think, and invitations for each of the project teams to do virtual meetings and where to find recordings of meetings. But a lot of the work is going to be based on Asana, which, a task management system, an issue tracking system, and GitHub. So, which are two very common tools you'd find in industry as well. So those are great introductions for how to do group work with that. So, okay. That sounds great. And why don't I kick this over to Laurent Pierre, who's the general manager of the customer experience group. And Laurent, are you based in Atlanta? Is that right?
Yeah, so thanks, Mike. So the view behind here is Midtown Atlanta, for those of you who are familiar with Peachtree. But I'm actually in Florida since last year due to COVID. And so my wife said either stay in Atlanta or pack up and come home. So I packed up and came home by around May of last year. So most of us have been working from home at Microsoft, but I'm definitely heading back to Atlanta as we're opening our new building in the fall here.
Oh, that's great. Well, I know you have some presentation prepared, so why don't we get into that, and I'll interrupt you if I think there's any questions that pop up.
That sounds great. So thanks for having me, first of all. And I wanted to quickly give everyone a rundown of kind of who I am and what I've been doing over the last 20 years. And so when I first graduated from undergrad, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. So it was a mixture of finance and technology. And I ended up jumping into technology because at the time I lived in DC, and that's what was hot at the time in the early to mid 90s. And so the 4 pillars that you see here around forging partnerships and driving performance, doing your research on pretty much when you're, whether you're at work or you're engaging with a customer, or you're trying to figure out a new path for your career, all of these four things are the things that I've carried with me over the years as I've moved up the ladder, if you will, but also made sure that each step I leveled up along the way. And so, when building relationships, I would say that's probably the most important thing that I found to be useful in building that level of trust with folks, but more importantly, being able to deliver and being able to level up from a skill perspective, both not only soft skills, but hard skills as well, both from a technical perspective, but also making sure that I'm always looking around the corner for what's coming next. And so why that's important and why I'm sharing it here is because I'm going to talk a little bit about the digital divide that exists. And we saw it plain and simple here during COVID over the last year, but also from a opportunity gap, if you will. Those are the kind of things that if you're not continuously learning and looking around the corner, the gap is going to get wider. And we want to make sure at Microsoft that folks understand this, and I'm going to share with you some ways in which Microsoft's helping to fill that gap. So I wanted to also share quickly a timeline around kind of how I got started. So I graduated from Howard University in DC, and my first job out of college was working on Capitol Hill for a software company. And so it was purchased by Leidos many years ago, but that was my first exposure into the US government. It was my first exposure as a consultant, but I learned a tremendous amount of things working on the Hill, from just engaging at that level with the senators, with the congressmen. If you can imagine, the environment was such that whenever a new office came in, think about the hardware, think about the software, the training of the staffers, and making sure that we're participating as part of the campaign. That was literally my first role out of college. And from that time, I was hooked on technology. Shortly after 1998, I joined the World Bank, which at the time I thought that was it, my dream job. I've arrived at 1998, only to find out that really wasn't my dream job. And I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would, but I also learned a lot. And I share that part because, sometimes you encounter a job and you think, oh, that's the job for me, until you get there. And you start experiencing things that you weren't thinking you were going to experience, both from a opportunity perspective, or it just wasn't the role for you. And at that point, I made a decision literally to pick up my family. At the time, I had my daughter, who was 4 months old. My wife and I said, let's move to Florida, because college roommates don't make for good babysitters. And so we moved to Florida, where my family was. My brother was here, and my wife's family. And that was my first entry into enterprise software management. And so ERP, if you think of back in the day, I'm going to date myself, PeopleSoft, JD Edwards, SAP, those types of things. That was my first entry into that type of environment. And so progressing to 2003, that Essential purchased the company I worked for. And then in 2005, IBM purchased that company. And I spent 14 years at IBM in a variety of roles, literally learning, upping my management leadership skills, working with some new technologies. And then I was recruited in 2019 to join Microsoft. And so hopefully this gives you kind of a career timeline along the way of kind of the things that I've done. And all throughout this, I had to level up and skill up to be able to do each of these jobs, because I have to tell you, from probably 98, 99, all of these jobs here required me to learn a lot of new things. So the hill was this way for each of these roles, but it was required if I was to be successful in the role.
What's the U-turn about in that road?
So the U-turn there was interesting, because I had avoided IBM for my entire career, because I would, it was all suits and ties and blue suits, white shirts. And okay, yes, I've got a white shirt. You could see what IBM did to me. But I avoided IBM completely. And so I was at a point where, do I follow the acquisition, or do I do something new? And luckily, I followed the acquisition, and it turned out to be an extremely rewarding career for me. So there you go.
Thanks.
All right. So I wanted to next share about Microsoft. And so one of the main reasons I joined Microsoft was what I saw it doing around its mission of changing the culture of the past at Microsoft, changing the way in which we engage customers and partners and how we work with employees. And so when the recruitment team first reached out to me, I was a little apprehensive. And interestingly enough, Microsoft was a company I'd never applied to in my whole career. And so it was kind of similar to IBM, but for different reasons. But when I started digging in and researching what Microsoft was doing around diversity and inclusion, what Microsoft was doing around changing the world, quite frankly, and moving from your Windows type of Windows and Microsoft Office to being an intelligent cloud for the world, or the world's computer. And so if you look at the digital transformation that Microsoft's been helping customers with, it starts with Microsoft, our employees, then our customers, optimizing our customers' operations, and then getting that feedback in order to transform our products, in order to solve big issues around the globe. If I take a look at the last year with COVID, I actually got to sit in on the meetings when COVID first hit and was really taking its toll. And we did a lot of things with the government around accelerating research, making Teams available to the education system, making Azure available for people to try out to accelerate their transformation with the product. And so these are some things that happened, which normally would take 2 to 4 years to happen. These things are happening in months at rapid scale. And our teams had to support it, both from an infrastructure perspective, a technical support, folks in the field. And with COVID, we had to do a lot of things via Teams, just like we are on Zoom right now. And so all of those things transformed literally the way Microsoft worked, but more importantly, how we engage with customers. And, for the better, we actually found different ways to work with each other. But more importantly, we empowered our customers to say we can do this in 3 to 4 months as opposed to 2 to 3 years. And so I wanted to share kind of this corporate overview with everyone, because underpinning all of this is the culture that Microsoft has been changing since Satya Nadella came to the company and started leading. Because what we have inside the company is a focus on our customers, making sure that diversity and inclusion is not a buzzword, but part of what we do at a leadership perspective and at an individual level. And then more importantly, it's all about making a difference. So when we say empower every person and organization on the planet to achieve more, we mean it at literally every level of the echelon. And in the year and a half that I've been here, I've seen it both inside the company as well as out. And so I wanted to share this view with the team as well.
That's great.
All right. So So moving forward, one of the things that drew me to Microsoft is when we saw all of the challenges that the nation as a society was facing amongst with COVID, with all of the issues around racial injustice, and Microsoft came and spoke out very strongly about this. I have some links here, and I'll share this with everyone later on the position that Satya took, as well as the company as a whole, and the things that we're doing, investing in making sure that we are looking at justice reform, making sure that we are, as a company, giving access to underrepresented minorities, Latinx communities, and more importantly, making sure that we're held accountable, like we're holding ourselves accountable to a higher standard that says it's not just about putting out a press release, but what are we doing to really change the game from a skilling, from a job availability and an access perspective. And a couple of slides further, I wanted to show you some of the things that we're doing as a result of Satya's leadership. Last year, around the same time, around June, we actually launched a global skills initiative to help skill up 25 million people. I know that sounds daunting, but as a matter of fact, we actually ended up skilling up 30 million people. And so we leveraged LinkedIn, GitHub, our own education, and made that available around the world for people to get the skills that they need, because we saw during COVID that the gap was getting wider and wider amongst the population. And so even if you look at today, if you survey companies today, they're saying that 54% of them, they don't have the right people to drive their business outcomes forward. And that's where companies can really step in from a corporate level to do it, but also Reskill Americans. It's right in that same alley. if you will, of what we're trying to do. And so this really, really excited me because people took us up on this offer as well.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And so addressing racial and digital inequity as well is another project that Microsoft is leading around. There's an initiative called the Airband Initiative, where we're trying to increase broadband to rural areas. So if I know Comcast has Internet Essentials, I know Google is putting fiber optics around countries, not countries, but counties. But if you can imagine, today there are still people that don't have internet access. 17% of underrepresented minorities are using their cell phones as their sole way of getting access to the internet. And so just imagine the implications on getting skilled up, being able to look for jobs appropriately if you're on a small phone, and all of those things. And so we're taking all of this into account because this is how you change the game and move the needle, by making sure that people have access, first of all, and that it's equitable across the board. And so these different cities that you see here are some of the cities that we're digging into. And this is, again, part of what makes Microsoft who they are. Another thing that I'm really excited about is you mentioned Atlanta. I mentioned Atlanta earlier, and we have a Microsoft Accelerate program where it's right now, this view gives you a view of our current and future state, but wave 1 includes Atlanta, New York, and Houston. And so we have an entire team that's driving, making sure that we can accelerate our skills amongst these communities, and making sure that we have not only the access to the education, but that folks can really take advantage of it and see a pathway to a new role, a new skill. And so this is one of the things that Reggie Isaacs is leading this from a Microsoft perspective. And he is driving this as this is his team's sole purpose in skilling across America. And I wanted to show the team kind of the breadth of what we're trying to do and why Microsoft thinks this is so important. Because if we don't do this, this gap will get too wide to even catch up. And so it's going to take governments, it's going to take corporations, it's going to take nonprofits, it's going to take individuals in order to change the tide, if you will, on the gap that we're seeing today. Okay. So another thing is, I mentioned earlier, responding to COVID, each of these pages are clickable links. And again, I'll share those as well. But these are some of the things that we've done. If you can imagine the research that's involved in bringing the COVID vaccines to market, imagine the distribution and supply chain challenges, mapping out where hotspots are happening, where we need to increase our Azure capabilities in order for customers to not have failures or outages. Those are all of the things people don't think about, but that's what Microsoft was doing 24/7 around the clock. Where we saw, if you take a look at the Johns Hopkins maps where COVID was spiking, that's part of the interactions that Microsoft had to make sure that we were actually making sure that we had the capacity for folks to expand. So when governments had increased needs, when schools needed to use more Teams, when Microsoft 365 needed some boost, or even education, where some nonprofits, education and nonprofits needed access to software to help with COVID. Those are all of the things behind the scenes that Microsoft was doing that many people were not aware of. And even vaccine distribution in Washington State, that was some of the things that we were participating in, using our resources, our facilities to be able to do that as well.
Yeah, I did not know that.
Yeah, so these are the kind of things that I felt I would be remiss if I didn't share, because a lot of folks are not familiar with the things that we're doing behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to dig in now to my area of the business that I work in. It's called Azure. Azure is a cloud platform, if you will, for those who are not familiar. And so these dots are the maps around the world. And so when you take a look, for example, at Azure, when you look at my area, I'm responsible for the entire US government support delivery. And so I've got folks on the East Coast, I've got folks on the West Coast, I've got folks in Atlanta, and all supporting customers. And so I have what we call Azure customer engineers They are the folks that are on the front lines working with our first responders. They're working with, our law enforcement agencies. They're working with hospitals. You name it, from a government perspective, that is what my team is responsible for doing. In addition to that, we have our secret agencies as well, that I have a portion of my team that are security cleared that also support those agencies as well that I can't really name. But
we know the alphabet soup.
That's right. That's right. And so those are the things that my team supports. And so we have customer engineers, we have program managers, we have managers as well, not only supporting from a support delivery perspective, but we're also getting from these customers what features they need in the product. We're also understanding how they're using our product to make it better. And so I wanted to give everyone a view of kind of the lay of the land and dig in next into some familiar logos here. For those of you who may not know, 95% of Fortune 500s use Microsoft Azure. So think about all of these logos here. I'm sure you can look at them and pick them out, whether it is, from telecommunications, we're talking about retail, other tech companies, insurance, you name it, we're covering them. And so you can just imagine that's the breadth of what Azure delivers around the country and around the globe. From a government perspective, my team is responsible for these 4 different areas here. From left to right, those logos you saw are primarily in the commercial space here. And then when you start going over here from Azure Government and Secret and Top Secret, my team supports all of these areas here. And so you can imagine if you're talking about Department of Defense, or if you're talking about some of the alphabet agencies or whatnot, they have very strict data residency requirements. They have very strict technology requirements. And so that's what my team is responsible for doing. So engaging with these customers requires that next level of skill. And that next level of clearance to be able to engage with the customers. And so this gives you kind of a high level view of the breadth from a government perspective that my team works with.
So obviously security clearance is needed for those working on the kind of to the right end of this spectrum.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And so the 2 on the left, you don't need security clearance, but you need to be a US citizen on US soil because of data residency challenges.
Yep.
Okay. So the good stuff, career paths. This excites me because we're about to double the size of my team in America. And so the reason being is because we're doing phenomenal from an Azure perspective. And so the lead into all of this was the fact that we're doing extremely well. Customers are adopting our software, but more importantly, we're helping them solve big problems at their institutions. And so left to right, the customer engineer role, think of this role not just as a person solving break fix, but really we get to know our customers. We actually ring fence our engineers so that the technologies that they're really deep in, they get to learn and understand and be able to engage with customers. And so we have our engineers working directly with customers, not only in break fix, but also helping to educate them. We're doing workshops with them as well. In some cases, we're troubleshooting their environment, whether it's Citrix, whether it is other third-party software. It's not just what we do. And so in here, I don't know, Mike, do we have time? I can click on some of these job postings.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Okay, perfect. So I had these here because I know folks would maybe be interested in the, let's see if it comes up here. Okay, I know folks would be interested in kind of like the types of skills. So I pulled one of our postings, which is a cleared one, but the data itself.
I'm still seeing just your slides though.
Just my slides. Okay, let me do this then. Let me share the screen. And that should do it. How about now?
Yeah, no, I see it.
All right, perfect. And so what you see here is pretty much the role itself. And so this, I'm just going to leave it on the screen for folks to consume it and later for reviewing. And so essentially, we are the advocate for the customer. We are listening to the customer for needs, for things that our platform doesn't provide. We're looking at feature requests. We're partnering with other parts of the business. We're driving innovation with the customer. And so this goes beyond your typical, break fix, as I mentioned, but we're going deep with our customers here. And so when you take a look at the kind of skills that we're looking for, some of our folks are deep in networking. Some of them have database skills. Some of them do programming. In our what we call our air gap environment, where we have our clearances, a lot of folks are doing some things with customers that, quite frankly, they can't talk about. So we're engaging in things with the customer in a more of a partnership, if you will, as opposed to a typical technical support environment. And so hopefully this gives you a view of the types of skills that we're looking for around databasing, troubleshooting, engaging customers. We're dealing with some machine learning in some cases, a lot of identity and Active Directory type things. But this hopefully gives a good feel, if you will, of that ACE role.
Yeah, that sounds great. One question I had is just, I think you mentioned something about how the feedback loop between customers and the product development teams. Does that kind of take a journey through your, through this kind of a, what did you call it, an ACE engineer here?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So absolutely. So we have something called the user voice of the customer. And essentially what happens is sometimes when we're fixing things, the customer says, I wish Azure could do X, Y, and Z. And at that point, we actually take that feedback and we have a process where we carry it through, where we go meet with the development team and say, here's a use case from Amazon, or not Amazon, but from GM or the Gap or Macy's or Starbucks or whoever they are. And we're like, this is what they need. This is why this current design doesn't work for them. And we drive that into the product. And then we can go back to the customer and say, here are the list of things that you wanted us to do. We couldn't do them all, but here's the 3 or 4 that we did, or a 10 out of 15 or something like that.
Yeah. I would imagine because your engineers are probably seeing like the implementation details, and they kind of get to see what's difficult or what's not easy to get accomplished, and can also have their own ideas about like how the product can be improved for customers.
That's exactly right. And so that's why it becomes so important that we are listening, because I mentioned earlier, from an empathy standpoint, we want to make sure that our developers, our engineering team, understand what our customers are going through when something breaks or when there's an outage, and how they recover, and having to reprocess data, and having to and the other scenario is when you have your system integrators, where not only are they impacted with their infrastructure, their end users impacted. And so now they have to explain to their users why there's a failure or what happened and how do they recover. And we help customers through all of those things. Okay.
That's great. Thanks.
So how about now? Can you see this?
Yeah, I see the slides.
Oh, perfect. So this is our program manager role. And I wanted to show you this one because oftentimes people think it's only about technology, but Microsoft runs on program managers. And so whether it's program management from a product delivery standpoint, or it's a customer experience standpoint, or we're trying to improve the end-to-end journey of a customer, those are all of the roles that a program manager does. So you have folks that are doing straight program management, but you also have folks that are technical as well. And so in this next posting here, hopefully this shows here, this is another one in our Azure, our broader Azure team. And so in this particular role, I'm going to leave this up for a little bit. This one is more around what you were just asking me about, Mike, around getting to know what the customers are doing as well. Delivering a product roadmap and strategy, because oftentimes you find there's a disconnect between what our customers in the telecom field or the banking and financial or manufacturing or supply chain or automotive, there's a gap between what we're developing and what they need in the particular industry. So what we found is co-creating obviously helps in making sure we're developing products for our customers. So the program management role itself, especially if you're technical, becomes that much more important, because now you can have those conversations with the customer, right? And then bring that back to engineering, where an engineering team would say, I did not think of that use case, or that's not really what I was thinking about, but let's go explore it with the customer. It doesn't always end up as a new feature, but in most cases, if it's something worthwhile that we can go to market with, it's the program managers that carry that football along with our support team into engineering.
Great.
Okay. And so you'll see here that there's a different mix.
Can you increase the font size a little bit? Because I think our video stream might not be quite.
All right. Let's see if I can do that
clear.
How about now?
I think that there. That one looks great. I think that'll probably be much more readable for people who are on, maybe there's people on small screens too. So
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So I wanted to show kind of a mix here, that it isn't always about being able to code. It isn't always about being able to decipher logs or things like that. It's about being able to engage with customers, understand user requirements, build a roadmap, build some use cases, work with some UX designers, and work across the organization. And so I wanted to show this role as well, because we have a lot of these roles here. I'll give you two examples. I have some program managers that I have working for me that are leading tool development in support to help us help our customers faster.
Oh, great.
Right. I have others that are actually working with customers in this mode that's here. And then I have other team members that are program managers that are helping do the next generation of what we have available for our customers. So first time development type efforts in the intelligence community, things that, you know, the intelligence community needs to do their jobs, if you will. And so a lot of our team members are not just limited to either product or feature requests, but we're literally doing new things that haven't been done at Microsoft before. Okay. And the third role obviously is our managers. So my managers work with our engineers and our program managers to lead, coach, and care, and make sure that we're giving them the tools and the support that they need to do amazing work with our customers. And so it's as I stated earlier, it starts with the employee. And so if you're not nurturing your employees with the right skills, the right tools, the right support, it's going to spill right over into our customers. And so that's why I make it a point to make sure that I have the right leaders in place to be able to be there to support and grow our team as well. Okay. And so I leave this presentation with some key links here. And again, I'll share all of this, but it really covers a lot of the areas that I mentioned today. But more importantly, it has some interviewing tips from virtual interviewing. Now that since we've been in COVID for the last year and a half, we have our Microsoft Military Affairs. We call it MSSA, where it's a program for veterans to come out of the military and transition into the workplace. We have our TEALS program, our certification. I mentioned Accelerate Atlanta. There's a whole website that goes through what we're doing for skilling. It also gives you access to free education as well, and also an update on what we're doing from a skilling perspective as well. So all of this, I'll make this available to you, Mike and team. But hopefully this has been helpful to give you kind of a quick view, if you will, into my organization and what we're doing.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. There's a lot of information there. So one thing about maybe, because I think early on you talked about the skilling initiatives and stuff like that. What form does that take? Are those online classes? Are they, certifications? What maybe you could talk a little bit about what kind of programs people would find and how they would kind of get access to those.
Sure, fair enough. I think I'm going to dig right into the Accelerate America. So it's a combination of LinkedIn learning courses, virtual courses with our education team. It's our third-party partners. So for example, in Atlanta, we have a variety of local nonprofits that we work with, in addition to the local companies here, that we actually have events and we actually guide folks in what skills they're looking to gain. So whether it's your basic digital skills or getting certifications, literally we have all of these things based on the type of role that you're looking to get into. And based on that, you can find your courses, pick your levels, find a commitment, and then you literally jump in and get started. And so that's what we have literally across the globe. And we have these specific Accelerate cities, but we're going to be growing based on what I shared earlier. But in addition to that, the skilling up of the 20 or 25 million people globally, we use partners and we partner with folks literally around the world to drive this this type of skill development.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Well, we have some questions from participants, and
Sure.
Aisha asked about green card holders versus U.S. citizenship. I know that your org serves the government, and you might have different requirements for your particular org as opposed to some other orgs.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So at Microsoft, so we have We have folks on my broader, not my team, but my colleagues' broader team that are on visas from other countries. We have team members who relocate from India, from Europe, from South America into the US and are working as part of our commercial team. And so there are definitely opportunities, and we do this all the time. It just depends on the requirement specifically. In my particular area, US citizen is required for the work that we do with the agencies that we work with.
Okay, great. So Marlos asks if technical project managers can act as program or product managers. I guess those two roles, maybe you could define those. And
Sure. So from a program management perspective, the spectrum is wide. So I have folks that are working in data centers. I have folks that are working on skill development and education of our own team members. I have other technical program managers that are being the voice of the customer, partnering with our engineering teams. And so, as I mentioned, the technical program managers I found to be the most effective because they can speak both the business language, the technical language, and also share the user requirements. And I think that's the key. And I always encourage folks to at least grab one technology area and be an SME at it, because that will open doors future down the road for your career when you dig into a technical area specifically.
What is SME?
Oh, sorry, subject matter expert.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Sorry,
I've heard that before, but I couldn't recall it.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Be expert in at least one thing, and kind of you can cross pollinate.
Exactly.
So related to that, I know you had on some of those job positions, degree requirements, like bachelor's degree or CS degree. So some of our participants don't have a CS degree. Obviously, right. They're in a boot camp. Some don't have a bachelor's degree. Like what are the requirements for our positions in your org?
So the great thing about Microsoft, and I'm going to do a plug for IBM as well, because I used to work with the HR team around this, is that we are looking to expand the candidate pool that we work with. And so quite frankly, we have folks that are not degreed, but we have folks that are ready to learn, ready to get skilled up. I'll share a quick example of a person I met during my first 2 weeks at Microsoft last year, who used to be a bartender in Atlanta for 10 to 12 years, who is now coding on the chat team in Azure. And this is like over a 3-year period where he went to an event for what we call non-traditional backgrounds, if you will, for tech. Yeah. And literally we have those events happening all the time virtually and a lot of cities. And so I share that story because it's not only one story, but I have many that way, where you come from untraditional backgrounds in tech and maybe don't have a CS or a degree or a bachelor's, but you have experience and you've shown the ability to pick up new technology and new skills. And Microsoft has made that possible for folks.
Yeah, we did talk to the group at Microsoft that is doing those non-traditional programs for non-traditional applicants. So
perfect.
Yeah, so and we found out some great information about how that program works. Let's see. Yeah, so that, so someone has a bachelor's in accounting or they don't need a bachelor's in computer science necessarily then for those roles, some of those roles?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, we have in Atlanta. So in Atlanta, we are expanding to hire 1,500 people. Not my particular division, but the entire site. So the site's going to have probably 1,500 to 1,800 people. And along the East Coast, Microsoft has been deliberate about increasing our diverse workforce across the East Coast, because we have to represent the people that we serve, right? The customers that we serve, the partners that we engage in, the first responders. And so we have a finance division building in Atlanta and along the East Coast. Not everything is situated in Redmond, Washington. And so there are opportunities along each discipline, whether it's sales, marketing, accounting, finance. All of those disciplines are covered and opportunities are available there.
Yeah, and this is someone who's obviously, it's in our program. They're doing software development skilling right now. So So, but they're kind of, they have that accounting degree, and they're wanting to they're getting cross-trained to be technical role.
I mean, that's a powerhouse type of role, because we have in our finance team the need for AI, the need for analysis, data analytics, and also building tools for our finance teams to optimize the work that they do. And so there's like a whole technology section within finance as well.
Yeah. Great. Let's see. Oh, a couple of people are asking about internships and apprenticeships. I don't know those roles. How do those, are those in your org? Are you hiring interns?
Yes. So we do every year. We have a collective of interns. There's the TEALS program that I mentioned as well.
Yeah, right.
The MSSA, and there are apprenticeship programs as well on our website. I think one or two, if not two, of the links that I'll share. I'll share the whole presentation with you, Mike and team. But yeah, we have those programs available. And if you go on Microsoft.com/careers and just type in internship and then sort it on the filter by city or by state, by country, you'll see where the internships are available. And it's important to apply early, because some of the deadlines end, where sometimes we have fall internships. Some divisions also have internships in certain parts of the year. Some other groups have it year round. It all depends on funding and what the needs are at the time.
Great. Someone said that it sounds like you need a lot of experience. They're looking, are entry-level roles within your org.
So yeah, as a matter of fact, so we have folks that have 3 to 4 years experience, sometimes 4 to 5. It depends. So we hire from the Azure Customer Engineer. I guess I left out the mapping. So Azure Customer Engineer is our entry-level role. Then we go to Azure Customer Engineer 2, Senior Engineer, and then Principal. And so yeah, so we hire at a wide range, because we like to bring our team members up as well. And so we don't always hire like the most senior 10, 15 years of experience, but we also hire throughout the range as well, so we can really build skills within the team.
Great. So I'm looking at YouTube now for some questions. Yeah, someone asked, like, how do you get a security clearance? Is that something you need to come with yourself before you apply?
Yeah, so the way it works is that, so you wouldn't come with yourself. So one of those secret agencies have to sponsor you. And so some people who maybe work within an intelligence community may start off in a non-cleared role, but then the agency has to sponsor you. And so within Microsoft, when folks come to my team, so I have two sets. I have half my team, which is uncleared, and the other team that's cleared. And then some of them come with clearance at a certain level, and then some of them have to upgrade as part of it. And so just know that it's not something that you can go get on your own. You have to do that as part of working for, let me see, who can I name? Department of Defense, I can name that. Department of Energy, things, maybe agriculture, I think, but something like that. But I can't. But the other ones you can use.
Yeah. So when people, like, they meet your qualifications from a technical point of view, and then they can still get an interview loop, and then maybe you'd slot them into a non-cleared role initially, but then if they are someone who would be qualified to apply for a security clearance, they could transition over to that other.
That's exactly right.
Secret teams.
Yeah, there's a whole division at Microsoft that handles all of that.
Yeah. Lots of lawyers at Microsoft too.
We love our lawyers.
Oh yeah. Well, my gosh, I wouldn't want to do all that paperwork myself. So yeah, thank you, lawyers. Someone asked about remote work. I know obviously this year is all about remote work. Just on an ongoing basis, what's going to be the status of remote work in your org? So
Kathleen Hogan, our executive VP of worldwide HR, basically put out something maybe last quarter, where 50% of the time we're allowing folks to work from home, and you work that out with your manager. Obviously, the last year and a half, we've all been at home. And interesting enough, my team members are security cleared. We don't have a choice, but we have to go into the office, because that's where we can only engage in
secure data and stuff like
bingo,
that.
Yeah. Exactly. But everyone else has been remote. I've been remote. My team's been remote. The uncleared team members have been remote as well. So I've got folks working literally all over the country.
Cool. So yeah, people are asking, I guess on some of those job listings, they mentioned a related field to software engineering. What would those be?
I think anything around, management and even marketing, if you will, right? It doesn't have to be necessarily a technology degree or an engineering degree, but it can be something around customer management, project management, program management, marketing, advertising, social media related things. Because one of my colleagues that's on my team, he runs the entire GitHub, Twitter, Facebook, Stack Overflow, LinkedIn, like all of the communities, the forums, the Q&A. He has a whole team of like hundreds of people that runs this around the world. So it's not only about the technology degree, but we've got all kinds of roles. And so I've got folks with psychology degrees that are doing technical work. So it depends on where you want to go and what you want to do.
Yeah, I would encourage people to I think I read there was some study recently. They were talking about differences between men and women, that men are likely to apply for a job where they only have like 70% of the listed requirements, whereas women tend to only apply to jobs where they have 100% of the listed requirements. And so, I would say, Microsoft is looking for a big diversity of roles. And so I wouldn't be put off if, you can't figure out for yourself, like exactly how you hit one of the things that say it's required. Talk to a recruiter there and they'll help you work through the process, I think.
That's exactly right. I always say, look at your first 3 bullets, because most managers and hiring managers put what they really want in those first 3 bullets.
Okay. Yeah, the essential requirements.
Pretty much everything else, unless it says required, pretty much.
Yeah. What about vaccination requirements? Is Microsoft requiring anyone to be vaccinated?
So no, not at this time. So we the approach that we're taking is, even though you see a lot of the country opening up and whatnot, Microsoft is of the position that we want to sort of be behind that curve. And so for those who have been vaccinated, depending on the state, we keep a track internally where what the state mandate is what we're basically leveraging to say what we do in the office. So, and for example, I believe Virginia, where one of my teams are, if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. But if you haven't been vaccinated, it's honor system, come in with a mask for yourself and others, if you will. And so that's literally, we have a mapping around the world of what the guidance is, but typically we're following the guidance of the particular state or country.
Just following local guidance and stuff.
But we're not trying to get ahead of it. We're basically behind to give that room for us to adjust. And because think about it, when people are coming back, conference room, shoulder to shoulder, desk, shoulder to shoulder, you're in the kitchen, shoulder to shoulder, you're at the cafeteria. All of those things are things that we have to consider. So Microsoft is taking the cautious approach, and rightfully so. Very proud of kind of how we're handling that.
Yeah, that's good. I think I was vaccinated about a month ago, my second vaccine. And so we started to see friends and have visitors from out of state and all these kinds of things. And then I got a little sick this weekend. And so I don't know if
and you're like, oh God,
I don't think it's COVID, but since I have been vaccinated, but it's possible, I suppose, that I got a mild case. But I got a test yesterday just to see.
Okay.
Well,
you look well. You look well.
Yeah, I was not doing great this weekend though. So
okay.
I'm doing better now. Thank you.
Fair enough.
So, all right. Yeah, but I think it's like we had like a year of like being masked, and like maybe my immune system is not gotten a workout because I didn't like kind of, introduce it to things until recently. So anyway, all right. I think, Juan, do you have any other questions? I think we've gone through most of them. I'd be able to see online.
Yes, I think that we've covered all the questions that have been asked on Slack and YouTube. I guess my question is, what are the soft skills that in your experience required for success in these roles?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that there's a lot. So I'll start with back to where I started from before, building relationships. And so being new to Microsoft, it was a little tough. So being new and being at a general manager level, right? So I was coming in from IBM, completely different footprint, culture, way of working, etc. And so I was literally the new kid on the block with a title. And so I had to figure out who's who in the organization, how to work with the different areas. And so, it's more or less of what got me here, but more around how you're going to interact with the different personalities, right? Some of them great, a lot of them great. Don't take it the wrong way, but you're always going to encounter that naysayer of a project, or you're going to encounter just an unfriendly face, if you will. But I think one of the things that has helped me is just have a set of core values that you bring with you, so that when you're engaging with folks and you encounter something that clashes with that, you basically you'll find those folks that gravitate to you, that want to help, right? And so I look for projects, I look for like-minded people. I look for folks that are wanting to move the business forward. And I think that beyond your technical skills, you really have to listen in meetings. You really have to engage and find out who are the key players, who are the change agents in the organization, and who are the ones that are truly looking to make a change. And I have to say, in the year and a half that I've been here, I found all of the above, right? And for the most part, it's interesting that even the 20-year veterans at Microsoft, those are the ones that I go to for counsel, because they're looking for new ideas from the outside. But I've been using them. Using sounds is not the way it means, right? But
yeah,
I've been working with them to sort of help me to engage at the level that I need to. And I would say, so you have to, be true to what you bring to the table, know what you're bringing to the table, but also leave room to hear other perspectives as well. Because, one of the things you don't want to do is say, all of this was, we did all of this before, we fixed all these problems, and you guys don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And there's a tendency to do that, but you have to sort of take a step back and be open, if you will, to other perspectives as well.
Yeah. Well, I know that it sounds like the conversation about diversity has been pretty open one at Microsoft, and front of mind for a lot of people. And and I know, since a lot of our participants are almost all are underrepresented minorities themselves, mm-hmm. and they will find themselves, just the fact of the industry is they will find themselves still in the minority in terms of people who look like them mm-hmm. and maybe have different experiences from them. What can you say about what that experience will be like at Microsoft, and how has that been for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's been refreshing, I have to say, in the sense that the type of topics that we're talking about George Floyd's killing and Ahmaud Arbery and all of the type of racial strife and injustice that we've been seeing, the fact that Microsoft is not only stepping up and making its position known, but internally we're talking about it. We're having those hard conversations. Some folks are uncomfortable, I'll be honest with you, because we're talking about things that we would have never talked about 5, 6, even 10 years ago in the office, where, my CVP was, at the forefront leading a book club around talking about the things that are happening in society and impacting people around the country. And so that for me was another check mark or reassurance, if you will, that I made the right decision. Because when I look around, we're not just talking about it here. We are investing money. We're investing in the folks that are at the company that are, like you said, Mike, looking for folks who look like them and are in an upward mobility fashion where they can have a safe space to talk. And I find, and that's why I usually am open to having conversations with folks that, that are somewhat difficult or somewhat awkward to have. But we are not only having the conversations, but we've implemented diversity and inclusion as part of our core priority. So your performance evaluation is based on what have you done to move yourself, your team, members around you, around the things that Microsoft is driving. right? And so this is not just, like I said, a press release. This is part of what we do here at Microsoft from a D&I perspective. And so if you look at the East Coast expansion and the Accelerate programs, it's all about the things that are skill development, not only just grabbing the best talent in the city, but lifting up the community as well, right? To get folks at a higher paying job, higher paying salary, getting the skills, but also giving them the support. And those are all the things I've seen since I've been here.
Yeah. Because I think in the, sometimes the response is like, oh, well, our company's colorblind, so we don't have a problem with this. But that, I think as I have tried to educate myself more, it's like, that is not a great response, because, the reality is, like, people are not necessarily feeling comfortable in an environment where they are the only Black person among,
right,
or maybe a Black woman among 30 white male engineers. That is just it's going to have a degree of discomfort, or not feeling the same kind of collegial attitude we kind of anticipate everyone having. And so I think it is a good idea to actually not take that attitude, but just to say, like, let's talk about these, and where are the things that we can bring everybody together and make sure that everyone's getting the support they need.
Absolutely. And probably the one thing that surprised me as well is that we have a lot of employee resource groups. So there's Blacks at Microsoft, Hispanic, there's a OLA group, Hispanic Latin American group. There's all kinds of ethnicity-based groups within Microsoft to support each other and the community. And so I would say those are some of the things that not only are the employees engaged, but the employees are engaged with corporate sponsorship, with executives behind it, bringing in outside-in perspectives as well. And I have to say, I've worked this is my 5th software company. I've never seen the level of engagement and
that's great.
Well,
really, Sach is a great leader. I think. I've been so impressed with him. Has been being a great executive for the company, and I think a lot of that is coming from him.
Absolutely,
I would give him a lot of credit for.
Absolutely, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. So for me, it's been fun. I'm going into this new fiscal year pretty excited, because we're going to be doing some great things with our customers. I've been here a year and a half, and I'm not yet a veteran, but I'm digging in. And the fact that we're giving the opportunity to drive diversity across everything that we do is a huge opportunity, and definitely I'm taking advantage for sure.
And a lot of growth coming this year, it looks like, too. So
definitely.
All right, Laurent. Well, thank you so much for talking with us today.
Welcome.
I don't know if you have anything else to say, or that was kind of the good closing for it.
I think so. No, I just want to say thanks. Femi, who works at Microsoft, reached out and said, "Hey, do you want to do this?" I said, "Sure." So I'm first of all, thank you for the opportunity. I'm glad we had a chance to talk. And as you can tell, love what I do, and the team that I do it with. And so I definitely would love to be able to help in any way I can. So let me know, Mike and Joanne. But again, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for your support. And also, Microsoft has been a big, as well, a financial supporter, as well as, moral support. And so, we definitely appreciate that in our program. So, okay. All right, great. Well, I will terminate the live stream now, and we'll talk to you later. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right.